how do you see the growth taking place? What do you think is the possibility right now for allowing India to take advantage of a difficult global situation? Because we are at this moment better off. We are not where we need to be because we still have work to do, but we are clearly better off. So is there some plan that you have or guidance for this system and put out an expectation from the industry and the players of the economy as to what can we hope to see in India in the next 6 months to a year?
I'm going to take off at a point which probably wouldn't be the expected answer.
Okay.
I'm glad that the PM is talking about the kartavya bhav. You know, sabka saath, sabka vikas, sabka vishwas, but sabka prayas. I think all of us will have to start doing what we can best do. Of course, infusing in it a certain seva bhav. We are doing it for the country. But of course, I learn my profit. I'll have my own income. All that is fine. But time has come that each one do a bit. Who, after all, started the startup movement? It was the young boys and girls. Haven't they come out saying, we'll be here, we'll show what we can, and then, of course, started saying, wouldn't it be better for you all to give us some support? So, if they could prove it, even despite the pandemic, within 2-3 years, since 2015, PM's support has been upfront for the startups. So I think it's time now to show a prowess, each one of us for ourselves. And that itself will give the creative momentum. Again, sorry for being referring to stories or mythology or Indian epics.
But that's us, so please
I was very glad to hear you talk of it. Ours is a civilization. It's been in us for a millennia. Haven't we heard of the story of the several birds, all of them on the floor, being deceived by a hunter by throwing a net on it? Each bird tried to get out of it but couldn't. But how did they all get out? By collectively flying on the spot in such a way the momentum was acquired and they lifted off with the net on them. Isn't that a story that all of us will have to look at? Each one may feel powerless, but together, if the will, Jana Manas, if all our Manas says, look, this country has to be somewhere else, but not here, this country includes us. So I would think it's the time to get unfettered in the areas that we are and lift like that flock of birds. Hunter be damned, I'm taking your net and all and I'm flying off. That's the time for India today now. And which place a better place than Mindmine Summit to talk about it?
Absolutely. So therefore, do you think it's time for India to start talking capital convertibility? At one point, and interestingly, the Reserve Bank governor made a statement. I don't remember if it was in a private conversation or a public statement. I think it's not an event. He said it's a journey. So are we expecting or hoping to see some steps, because that is part of our internationalization as well? On the one hand, lowering some of the import duties, that might help with some of the inflation. And on the other hand, looking at 1 or 2 more steps towards capital account convertibility. Are we ready for that?
See, I'm sure you observe government on the Reserve Bank and the various steps that they're taking over the period, and also infer for yourself as to where this is going. What is this attempt now in having rupee trade? It's not the ruble rupee which was of the old format. Now this formulation, which I'm glad the RBI has come up at a time which was so critical, we are seeing interest coming from so many different countries, all of which think, yes, it's possible to trade in, say, rupee, and those are significant points of transactions. And in a way, is opening the Indian economy a lot more than what it can imagine to be. So if that is one milestone, may not be that milestone which you would have predicted in the old pre-pandemic India. Now, post-pandemic India is coming up with so many out-of-the-box solutions. Although there are still some who would only, pick up on the old example and say, would you do this? Would you do that? Would you? No, the solutions are also new solutions. And as a result, I would like to highlight the fact that we are lots more open with the Indian economy, lots more open in the way we are talking to countries. We are willing to have our digital platforms become interoperable between countries to enable cross-border transactions. So there are several tools which didn't exist earlier, through which Indian economy is getting opened up. So I want to have these beads which are getting into the string in your conversation. And that's actually making India a lot more surprise the world, but be there with them. So those are worth studying.
Absolutely. So tax to GDP ratio is up, GST collections are up, revenues overall are up. So lots and lots of good news on that front. These numbers, however, are of averages or of macro numbers. On the micro, however, we still have challenges. And unfortunately, those challenges at this moment exist mostly in small industry or highly labor-oriented activities. And those are the ones which continues to suffer in some sense, still not recovered since the start of the COVID. And that, I think, is something that deserves some kind of attention. And again, I'm not only talking on a subsidy basis, but a supportive system to get them on track for growth. Because there is growth in India at this moment. We are uniquely positioned. If you look objectively around the globe, we are one of the very few large countries which can see 25 or 30 years of secular growth ahead of us. Of course, we'll see some ups and downs, but it seems reasonably clear that we will have a growth path. We put in all the building blocks in the last 10 or 15 years or 20 years in India. And we are now putting in the additional riders which will help accelerate this growth. Do you see us going back to the 10+% growth in the coming years?
Well, it's very difficult for me to predict on specific numbers. But people who are in the job of predicting future, particularly those in business, like for instance the recent Morgan Stanley report, has unhesitatingly said 7 being the average, India will consistently grow at that kind of a number. So those are words coming from people who are normally critical and critically appraise economies. But one point on which I'll go back is what are the kind of ways in which we can support small industries and so on. Even as I do that, and I would want you, I would seek your indulgence because I'm picking up on issues which are not otherwise meant to be picked up, but mine. So I'm also mining my thoughts and coming out. Now, support to the MSMEs. And I know I'm treading in a dangerous landmine-riddled area. Support to the MSMEs is not just what government can give. It is certainly largely dependent on that. But I'll take an example where all of you all can equally help. Look, we created from the government the TREADS platform. We wanted payments to go to the MSMEs in due time and not be delayed. And there was a time when, there was public, there was a figure floating around in the public saying it's probably to the extent of 10 lakh crores. Indicating probably all the 10 lakh is due from the government. I spent a lot of time going through it. Yes, of course, government, some state government, some public sector undertaking under the center, and some public sector undertaking under the states. But I was surprised to find a considerable due payment, pending payments were also from the big industries. Now, is this just a data that I've taken out from nowhere? I even cross-checked with the registrar of companies to make sure that the statements which are declared by companies naturally would have it. I picked it up to see. They were declared dues by large companies. Now I can push my PSCs, I can request states, I can make sure departments pay up. I can only appeal to the industry. For all the tears that we shed for the MSMEs, my tears, your tears, can we limit the time by which the MSME will get its due? Good enough that you're putting it in your annual statement every year, but when are you marking the time to give them? I think all of us will have to do our bit and equally pull up the other for doing their bit towards the causes on which we are very, very stuck.